All right. Thank you so much. All right, guys, get ready for your next panelist here. We have the Decentralizing Hashrate for more of a robust network. Give it a round of applause for our panelists.
Oh, thanks for the woo. That was really cool. Also, thanks for coming when you could be queuing up for Trump. It's really appreciated. So this panel is Decentralizing Hashrate for a more robust network. And I know it's one of the coolest subjects ever, isn't it?
It is the coolest subject ever.
It is the coolest subject and very, very important, as we were discussing out the back. So we have Bob Burnett, who is the CEO of Barefoot Mining, and he is on the board with Jack Dorsey at Ocean and very, very involved with decentralized mining and layer twos, which is something maybe we can discuss at some point. We have Skot 9000, who is a co-founder of Bitaxe, and his hardware recently mined, or one of his little desktop miners recently mined a whole block, which I think woo! I mean, that's probably cooler than the panel itself. And then Definitely, yeah. Cooler, yeah. John Stefanopoulos, the CEO of FutureBit. So would you each mind introducing yourself? I mean, I know I did it briefly, but could you give us some more information?
Yeah, okay. So Barefoot Mining, we're an advocate for small to medium-sized commercial mining. Our basic mission is to build lots of mining sites in the half a megawatt to 10 megawatt range. We believe that's the most important part of the infrastructure. And I'll also say I'm on the board at Ocean, so it's a pool focused on decentralization. And I've also recently started a new company called M5ers, and we will be designing our own ASIC to help decentralize that part of the infrastructure.
Yes, my name is Skot. I'm the instigator of the Bitaxe project. It's not a company. It's an open source home miner, and from top to bottom open source. My kind of goal in starting it was to bring the sort of open source ethos that I think has made Bitcoin so successful back to mining. But sort of as this project has been going, and more related to this talk, is I think that there's no central company, there's no central body around the Bitaxe. So that is decentralizing the production of this hardware. Anyone can go to bitaxe.org and get the files and start making it. And, there's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing, the sensors can do about it. So that's the Bitaxe.
And I'm John Stefanopoulos. I'm the founder of FutureBit. So we're on the same mission. We're trying to decentralize the hash rate and bring millions of individuals into the Bitcoin network. And the main goal of FutureBit, aside from just mining, is that we bring the whole Bitcoin ecosystem. And I've developed a device that includes a full node plus a miner, so you can actually participate at the base layer, run a full node, and get rewarded for doing so. And we've made it super easy to get started. You plug in our device, 5 minutes, you're starting to sync the blockchain and start mining. So we're trying to revolutionize mining and get millions of people involved in the base layer that way.
So do you think that this isn't the question, it's kind of I'm loading up the question. So Satoshi's vision, do you think that they anticipated the incentive structure with larger miners and the decentralization between incentives? Do you think that it's heading in the right direction? So concerns that I have with mining and centralization is the four largest pools make up probably about 83% of the hash rate. We have a problem with hardware, all coming from China. There is a software issue and geography. So there's quite a lot to unpack and unwind, and it is heading in one direction, which is centralization. So the question is, over the page. No, it's not. It's over this. Oh my God, I was so organized and I've just completely screwed this up. So the question is, what is the value of decentralization and has it changed? Anyone can take that.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I've been in the space for about 10 years and watching the corporations and big money come into the space has changed the incentive structure a lot and has forced out the small time individuals from participating in the network. So they view Bitcoin mining as something that's this big industrial thing that I can't touch. And that's the exact opposite of what Satoshi envisioned as far as I interpret it. When Satoshi launched the Bitcoin core software, a lot of people don't realize that software ran on a single PC, ran the full node, ran the wallet, and ran the miner. So every single person was running the entire ecosystem on their PC. And over the course of the past 10 years, that's been separated, right? The mining aspect has been separated to ASICs, centralized ASICs. The wallet software has been put off to a different entities, and then the node aspect has also been separated. And on the node side of things, almost no one runs a node in terms of the percentage of actual millions of Bitcoiners out there. I think last time I checked, there was probably 100,000 nodes total out there. And last numbers is there's like, 50, 60, 100 million owners of Bitcoin. So that needs to change. We need millions of nodes on the network. And that's why we developed our device. We brought those three worlds of Bitcoin, the miner, the wallet, and the node back into a single system that anybody can run on their desktop. And we need to get back to that. And we need to make sure people are running nodes and are able to produce blocks, uncensorable blocks, like the Bitaxe just did a few days ago, where that block was mined on a solo pool where there was no transaction processing going on. There was no centralized big corporate pool in charge of that. And we've seen with Marathon and a bunch of other corporate pools, they're actually starting to do transaction selections and transaction processing where they can pick and choose which transaction essentially gets into the blockchain. And that's a dangerous precedent that we need to get away from and make sure there's decentralized blocks being produced on the Bitcoin network. And that's only possible by solo mining and having independent pools out there.
I think, decentralization is a core tenet of Bitcoin. It's one of the absolute pillars of it, and these pillars were created to address specific issues with fiat. So if we don't have decentralization in all aspects of Bitcoin, mining being a very important one, what are we doing? We're reverting to a previous system. So I think we've got to bring mining back into this fold. We've got to keep it decentralized, away from the people who might seek to control it or censor it or, otherwise degrade it.
But we also have to recognize that the forces will always try to force the centralization, whether that's geographic, the pools, all those sorts of things. They just have this natural tendency. So I think doing things like this are important because there has to be awareness. And I hope there's always a group of people who have a motivation that's not purely financial. And I worry about that in future generations. But I think things like what happened, like having a Bitaxe mine a block, I hope that's inspiring to people and gives people the energy to want to participate and, using these devices that sit in the home, and hopefully there are millions and millions of people around the world who are willing to dedicate 15 watts or 100 watts of their personal power consumption to keep us going. I call those rabbits, but they're really important, and I hope as future generations go, we all have this spirit of Bitcoin here. I think we understand to a certain degree the importance of centralization, of decentralization, but I worry that future generations might not have the same spirit.
Because you understand and you're looking at layer twos. I think that as long as the base layer of Bitcoin stays decentralized, we're going to have lots of different solutions that sit on top of the base layer that will be from centralized to decentralized. So you can pick whatever suits you. So I'm not as precious about decentralization when it comes to the solutions that sit on top. So what kind of layer 2 solutions do you think could help? We're not quite there yet.
Well, I don't know what the future brings. I think Lightning is a good start, clearly. I think it's a little too early to say how many there are going to be, and where they're going to come from and how they're going to be applied. What I do know is that the base layer can't handle it, and I think that's a reality that everybody has to accept. And so there's a ton of people out here trying to do cool things, and some are going to make it and some aren't. It reminds me, some of those of you who know me, I came from the personal computer industry, and it's very reminiscent of the early days of the personal computer and the early days of the internet that I lived through. And you don't know who the winners and the losers are going to be. You don't know where the creativity is going to come. But what you need is people inspired to want to do that. And I think we do have that energy now, and hopefully we keep it. Hopefully the VCs want to keep funding it too. That's a big part of it.
Yeah, that is. Do you want to answer? I was going to ask you a different question, but you go for it.
Right now it's the way it should be. Whereas if you want to create a layer 2, you don't need to ask anyone for permission to do that, right? You can just do it. And I think preserving that ability for various layer 2s, whatever they may be, to be added and be built on top of the Bitcoin ecosystem is, it's our duty as miners to keep that ability by keeping the base layer, uncensored, permissionless, decentralized.
Yeah, and going off that, I think the big part of the problem with Bitcoin and layer 2s is there's a lot of outside forces from other chains to keep up with them, which I think is the completely wrong narrative to take. Bitcoin at the base layer needs to be decentralized and fixed first before we even need to worry about layer 2s. We're so early in Bitcoin that people are caught up with what's going on every day and the recent innovations of other chains and things like that we need to catch up with them or we're going to be turned into dinosaurs. That's not going to ever happen with Bitcoin. And we need to focus on the base layer and making sure that the base layer has millions of people on the base layer participating in it before we worry about anything else. I mean, that's my main concern. It's like until we have at least 1 million nodes on the network, there should be no other discussion. And we're 10% of the way there right now. So we've got a ways to go.
So the answer, I can see a time when we have nodes on our phones and everybody is a node and home heating is decentralizing, because I know that large miners now are causing a problem, but I do see a world where it's in everybody's home, and that's exactly how we're going to have decentralization. So with Ocean and Stratum V2 and home heating, do you see a reversal of this trend?
Yeah, that's where the industry's going. We've seen a change, especially in the past year or two, in terms of hardware manufacturers and ASIC manufacturers starting to diversify. So there's a lot more options out there in terms of building new use cases for heat reuse. So what we're seeing is incredible new products popping up everywhere that take advantage of that heat problem. And like you mentioned, that's where the real revolution in mining will happen. It will happen in individual home reuse spaces. And we see that happening right now with the new products coming out with home heaters and taking advantage of heat reuse and applications around that. So heat
reuse is interesting because you see that little container, they just pump their air out. I was talking to a guy earlier, and I said, well, what do you do with the heat? He goes, oh, look, we just pump it out the top. And I'm like, can't you do something with it? And he's like, no, it's too hard.
I think that's an important point. We all know that there's these fantastic applications in heat reuse. It makes perfect sense. It's making you Bitcoin as you mine, and it's making heat, so you can use that to heat your swimming pool or your house. But unfortunately, the incumbent hardware makers, they only make devices that go on racks inside large farms. And the firmware only is designed to control those. And it's very hard if you're one of these, hot water heater or space heater makers to, you essentially have to hack a data center device to be a heater. And it's still very hacky at this stage. Like, we have this obvious solution where it decentralizes Bitcoin mining to have all these space heaters out there. But we really need to decentralize the hardware manufacturer and open up the ability for people to develop on this so that these applications can get made.
Jack Dorsey's doing that, isn't he?
Jack is. I think that what I mentioned already, I've come from the personal computer industry. And if you think about the personal computer industry, what has happened is we had the chip making completely independent of the system making. So we have Intel and AMD and Cyrex and in history all kinds of different processors, and that allowed individual system makers, a completely different type of expertise, to attack all kinds of different verticals. And so, almost everything, every kind of device today is some sort of a computer, and most of them are somewhat personal computers, as you've seen, for instance, by what happened with the airlines. But we don't have that today. What we have is we have almost all the hash rate, all the hashing devices come from Bitmain and MicroBT, and they don't sell their chips. They don't allow individual creativity. And so we're stuck with essentially whatever system designs they come up with. And, I'll say, while there's certain positive aspects of them, they're frankly not very creative. And they don't have to be because there's no competition. So what Jack's doing with Block, creating his own chip, there's chain reaction. Blockstream has an initiative, and I'm becoming a little more public now. We have an initiative as well. And I can speak for ourselves, and I know both for Block that and chain reaction actually, that all of those will open up that chip making and sell chips individually to whomever wants to create a device. If that's a heater, if that's a home device, if that's an enterprise class system, that gives people creativity. So that's really, really important. And you had mentioned Stratum v2 also earlier. I want to address that. I think the most pressing threat of centralization that we face today is in block template creation. So, earlier you talked about somewhere between 80 and 90% of all the pool, all the blocks are produced by 4 pools. So that means all the block templates are produced by those, and some of those are actually using the exact same template. So we have somewhere probably between 3 and 5 template creators. And for those of you less familiar, that means those are the people deciding what transactions to pluck from the mempool and to put into the next block that's being produced. If we don't have diversity of that, then blacklists and whitelists and all kinds of bad things come from that. And so that's my keep me up at night thing right now is working on that. And that's what we're trying to do at Ocean is, and Ocean is sometimes misunderstood, but sometimes we're thought of as, those are the censorship guys or those are the anti-spam guys. Actually, we're not. We are the group most focused on bringing independent template creation. And if you mine with Ocean, what we'll do is that you can do whatever you want as long as it's a consensus valid block. Then you can be part of our pool and you can mock. And you can mine, and we want you to be part of that. And we hope other pools do it too.
And you said you can even pinpoint the hardware that mines the block, which you can't with other pools.
Well, that's Well, there are some other, like for instance, the one with the Bitaxe, able to identify. But like what I can do as part of Ocean, I was Barefoot had the luck and the honor of mining Ocean's first block, and I know within our farm exactly what machine mined that block. In fact, there's a sticker on that machine. We're going to auction it off for charity at one point. But I think it's a cool piece of history. I think that's a cool thing. And so, there's about 6 million devices in the world hashing today. And each year, about 53,000 blocks are found. So that means you have a really small percentage chance of any one device happening. So in my mind, any machine that mines a block is a significant part of history. And should be, rewarded. It's kind of like, our combat veterans. Like, we need to honor those people that have done the work, and they're my heroes.
So, centralization is a problem. We've identified 4 main issues that are creating centralization. We've also talked about some of the solutions, which I can see are happening, and they're going to probably happen quite quickly as well. But what are the risks if the current centralization trend continues? Sorry.
You're saying, what are the risks if the current centralization continues? I mean, Bitcoin as we know it, right, disrupting fiat and providing open access to anyone who wants to use these financial tools is at risk, right? This is a core tenet of Bitcoin, and we can't have... one example situation is we have mining pools centralizing into a couple different pools, right, that are controlled by companies that are regulated by the governments where they operate. So the government says, oh, you know what, you need to stop processing these transactions, which if we had a properly decentralized mining pool, it wouldn't be any big deal if one mining pool stopped processing transactions because all the rest would just pick those up. But if it's a really big pool that controls a significant portion of the hash rate, we could have them, significantly delay and frustrate people who are trying to make these transactions happen, right? For whatever reason, they're forbidden in a certain jurisdiction. It could be quite frustrating, and in the extreme, it could actually censor it.
Also add that typically things like fork activations are signaled through blocks. So if we don't have a diversity of templates, a diversity of people creating the blocks, then we don't have as many people voting in the future for whatever, whether it's CTV or OpCat or whatever. I mean, we don't have to go to that, but soft forks especially are typically activated through this, and I sure hope it's not a vote of Foundry and Antpool only that decide what happens next in Bitcoin.
John?
Yeah, I think the risk at the basic level is that Bitcoin just turns into Wall Street 2.0. And we move away from the original vision of having a new monetary force controlled by the people. And that's where we need to be, and we can't get away from that. We already have financial system, we already have banks, we already have all those centralized systems. We don't need to put a layer on top of Bitcoin for them. That's not what Bitcoin was created for. It was created to be against all this. And we have to make sure us as people, all the Bitcoiners here, understand that, because I think people have forgotten that. They just care about NGU, number go up, and they've forgotten the basic tenets of what Bitcoin's about. And it's about freedom at the end of the day. It's like, if we don't have this freedom money to counteract what's going on in the world, we're screwed.
Yeah, number go up is probably the least interesting part of Bitcoin for me, definitely. We've got a couple of minutes left. Is there anything that you would like to add before we go and jump in the queue for Trump?
Yeah. Well, first, I just say thank you to those of you that showed up, because I know you have options, and Well, thank you. We do appreciate all of you that came out.
It's actually a really good turnout. I was expecting Chester and nobody else. Yeah. Anything else you'd like to add, Skot or John?
I'm just in awe by the people that are here that support our mission, support Bitaxe, support decentralization, all our customers that are running nodes. A lot of people don't know this, but almost 10% of all of Bitcoin is run by FutureBit nodes. And nice. I'm just in awe by the people that do get it and do run it, and we need to get that message out to millions of people. Just run a node. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, that's a good move. That's a good move. And I guess extending that to mining too, right? Like if you're at all mining curious, right? You can get one of these things. There's miners that you can run in your home practically, like the FutureBit, like the Bitaxe. Like this is total. You can do this. So you can just jump in. It's low commitment. It's you know, in several people, it's going to start your path like way deep down into this rabbit hole, and it's such a rad place to be. So I think it's pretty exciting. So check it out.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. I think we were a couple of minutes over. We should probably wrap it up now. Yeah?
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Okay, thanks
Thank
for
you
an
very
amazing
much.
panel. You've been great.
Next year, we are bringing the Bitcoin conference to the American West, Las Vegas. The brightest minds in the world will converge to deliver Bitcoin history. Buy your tickets now at b.tc/conference/2025.